Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into a whole stack of sources about the recent tensions flaring up again on the Thai-Cambodia border.
Yeah, quite a bit to unpack. We've got a few key pieces guiding us here. There's a transcript from Suthachai Live's YouTube segment,
Hmm.
and that pulls in reports from Thailand's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Royal Thai Army.
Okay.
Then we have insights from, well, military figures with pretty different takes on things, active and retired.
Interesting.
And maybe most importantly, we've got these on-the-ground accounts, directly from residents living right near the border, that's reported by BBC Thai.
Right, the human element. So our mission here is basically to sift through all these different viewpoints, the official actions. We want to help you understand not just what's going on, but the layers underneath. Why it's happening and why it really matters.
Exactly. Let's try and unpack this. It's definitely complex. So the spark, right, the
Yeah.
thing that set off this recent surge in tension, as reported anyway, was a clash between Thai and Cambodian soldiers.
Okay, when and where?
This happened back on May 28th. The location was Chongbuk. That's in the Nam Yuen district, which is in Thailand's Ubon Ratchathani province, right up near the border.
Got it. And the official line from Thailand, what are they saying happened?
Well, according to both the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Army spokespersons, their line is that the Thai soldiers involved were acting purely in self-defense.
Self-defense?
Yeah, and to uphold national sovereignty. They've stated pretty unequivocally that these actions were appropriate, proportionate, and completely in line with international law and standard military practice.
Okay. So self-defense, proportionate response. What happened after that incident? What's Thailand's approach been since then?
Well, their stated approach, publicly at least, has been all about exercising patience and restraint.
Patience and restraint.
Right. They've emphasized wanting to find a peaceful resolution. And they've specifically called on Cambodia to de-escalate things. Crucially, they asked that any conflict be limited, contained just to that specific spot where the initial clash happened.
And are the leaders talking? I mean, are there high-level discussions happening?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The sources highlight engagement across multiple levels. We're talking prime ministers, foreign ministers, defense ministers, and even the army chiefs from both countries have been involved.
So top levels.
Right. And the consistent message coming from the Thai side in all these talks, reportedly, has been emphasizing good faith and the bigger picture of being friendly neighbors.
Okay. Diplomatic channels open. Was there a key meeting or moment?
Yeah, there was. A really key moment seems to have been this meeting on June 5th. Thailand's deputy prime minister, who's also the defense minister, met his Cambodian counterpart. This was in Sa Kaeo province in Thailand.
Okay, what came out of that?
Well, the Thai side, they specifically reiterated the call for de-escalation, and they put forward a concrete proposal
Which was?
to withdraw troops. Both sides pull back to the positions they held before that May 28th clash. The logic, pretty clear.
Yeah,
Get the forces further apart, reduce the risk of another flare-up.
makes sense. How did Cambodia respond to that proposal?
Well, here's where you see the diplomatic difficulty, right? Cambodia's reaction, at least as it's presented by the Thai side in these sources, was an immediate rejection,
Just flat out no.
apparently. And not only that, the reports indicate Cambodia actually continued reinforcing their troops in the area after rejecting the proposal.
Okay.
They also reportedly refused to stick to the framework laid out in that 2000 Memorandum of Understanding the MOU. That's the agreement that's supposed to guide peaceful negotiation and border demarcation.
And why refuse that? Did they give a reason?
Their stated reason, according to these reports, was a claim that their troops were already present in that specific area before the MOU was even signed back in 2000. So they're essentially saying the MOU doesn't apply to this spot in the same way.
Okay, so that's a pretty fundamental disagreement on the baseline, isn't it?
Exactly. And that rejection, combined with the continued troop movements and the refusal to use the MOU framework, well, it seems to have triggered a more, let's say, assertive response from Thailand, particularly regarding border control.
Right, so diplomacy hits a wall and then comes action on the ground. What kind of measures are we talking about?
We're talking specific, concrete operational measures. The sources detail this order from Thailand's Army Region 2 Commander, Lieutenant General Boonsil Paklang. It came down on June 7th, effective that evening.
Okay, an official order. What did it empower?
It basically gives significant authority to the two main military forces covering that border section. With Cambodia, that's the Barafa Force and the Suranaree Force,
Authority to do what?
to open or close any type of border point in their areas. And that's not just about troop movements. It includes controlling the flow of all goods.
Goods, like everyday stuff, too.
Yeah, necessities, but also potentially military equipment. The stated aim is ensuring public safety, for people on both sides of the border.
So real control over the crossings. Is it all or nothing, open or closed?
No, there's flexibility built in. The commanders can also just reduce the operating hours at certain border points, especially those in or near the areas where clashes happened recently, like near Chongbuk. So that puts places under the Serenity Force in provinces like Ubon and Sisaket directly in focus.
And these border points are usually busy, right? Affecting local life.
Oh, definitely. The sources mention some key ones. Chongarnma in Ubon, that's a permanent checkpoint. Then there's Chongsai Taiku in Buriram, Chongsangam in Sisaket, Chongchom in Suren. A lot of these facilitates local trade, people crossing for work or family. So closing or restricting them has immediate knock-on effects, economically and socially.
And are there specific triggers laid out in the order for when they should close these points?
Yes, very specific triggers. The order says if there's a significant buildup of Cambodian troops that looks like it threatens public safety or property,
Okay.
or if an actual conflict, shooting or clashing, happens near the border area, then those commanders have the authority to shut things down.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Wow, okay. So a direct link between perceived threat and border closure.
Exactly. And there's another lever mentioned, an economic one. The order also gives authority to cut off electricity sales to Cambodia.
Cut off electricity.
Yeah, under those same conditions. A significant troop buildup impacting safety and property. That's potentially a big deal.
Definitely. Any other immediate impacts reported?
Yes. One very tangible one is the temporary closure of the Phamo A Dying viewpoint.
Ah, near Priya Vihar.
Exactly. It's in Khao Phrao Wihan National Park in Sisaket, famous for those views towards the temple complex. It's been closed since May 29th, the day after the clash.
Why close a tourist spot?
Just because it's so close to the border area. The rationale is the potential risk if things escalate further. So that's a direct hit to local tourism right there.
Okay, so you really see these specific operational steps being taken on the ground, commanders getting direct control over crossings, resources, even electricity, all in response to this situation.
Precisely. It paints a picture of heightened military readiness and control.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The sources highlight quite a divergence in perspectives coming from within the Thai military itself. Two pretty different ways of looking at how Thailand should handle this.
Yeah, this is fascinating. First, we hear from Major General Renat Shrine. Now, he's the Deputy Commander of Army Region 2, but importantly, he's also a former commander of the Serenity Force.
So he knows that specific border area very well.
Intimately, you'd assume. And his perspective, it's framed in the source almost like a field commander's view, a Southern Eisen warrior. He lays out what he calls 11 facts and way out.
Okay, facts and way out. What are his key points?
He makes some very direct, very forceful claims about Cambodia's actions. He says Cambodian soldiers trespassed 150 meters into what Thailand considers its territory.
150 meters.
Yeah, and also encroached in a nearby claimed area, an area under dispute. He even alleges they burned a specific structure, something called the Tramuk Pavilion.
So specific alleged violations.
Right. And he connects all this directly to the history around that 2000 MOU and the long-running border issues near the Privera Temple, which, as you know, has been a flashpoint for years. There's a whole history there with the International Court of Justice ruling on the temple itself, but the surrounding land demarcation is still contentious.
He's bringing up that whole complex history.
Absolutely. Major General Renat asserts Cambodia has been violating agreements for a long time. He cites over 400 protests lodged by Thailand over the years.
400, wow.
Yeah. And he directly challenges Cambodia's claim about being in the area before the 2000 MOU. He offers his own personal experience, saying he himself could walk freely through that exact spot as recently as August 2024.
So a direct counter-narrative based on his own experience.
Exactly. He points to what he sees as continued Cambodian troop and weapon reinforcement, attempts to control other areas, accusations being thrown at Thailand. And he mentions Cambodia threatening to take the issue to the World Court.
Even though there's the JBC, the Joint Border Committee.
Right. Which was set up precisely through agreements like the MOU 2000 to handle these disputes peacefully. His solution, it's very blunt. He says they should talk like men instead of going to court.
Talk like men.
Yeah. He believes going to court will just create lasting bad blood between future generations. It's a view very focused on responding strongly to perceived violations, a sort of direct confrontational approach.
Okay, that's one perspective. What's the contrasting view?
It's quite a sharp contrast. It comes from a retired senior officer, Air Chief Marshal Thakul Nakornthub. He retired just last September, I think.
Okay, an Air Force perspective, retired.
Right. He's described as deeply patriotic, served since he was 16. But he asks a really fundamental question. What does patriotism actually mean in this specific situation?
Interesting question. What's his take?
He argues that loving your country doesn't automatically mean you have to go to war. He raises a serious strategic warning that if Thailand is perceived internationally as using force first, even if Thailand claims it's self-defense or protecting sovereignty, the world might just see Thailand as the aggressor.
The international perception angle.
Exactly. And he lists some potentially severe consequences. Losing vital support within ASEAN, maybe even facing condemnation from the UN, other countries like in the EU viewing Thailand negatively. Basically damaging the international credibility Thailand has worked hard to build up over the years.
That's a significant risk.
He also makes the point that, look, historically wars almost always end in negotiation anyway. Unless it's one of those rare cases of total surrender or annihilation. He frames war, thinking about international humanitarian law, as something that should always be the absolute last resort, used under rational constraints.
So negotiation is likely inevitable anyway.
That's his point. Air Chief Marshal Thakul believes Thailand needs visionary leaders who are really skilled in sophisticated diplomatic negotiation. That's how you achieve national goals without paying the incredibly high price in lives and resources that comes with conflict.
A focus on diplomacy as strength.
Precisely. He thinks many Thais want their country to be respected globally for its wisdom and its diplomatic skill, not just its military power.
He also seems to champion open discussion, right?
Yes, strongly. He says people should be able to express different opinions on national security without being instantly labeled unpatriotic. He argues that true patriotism actually involves offering reasoned critique before problems spiral out of control.
So constructive criticism as patriotic duty.
Kind of, yeah. He says at age 61, he personally wishes for a kind of patriotism where everyone's safety is the priority. He sees success at the diplomatic table not as weakness, but as a sign of maturity and intellectual strength.
Does he comment on the current handling of the situation?
He does, and quite directly. He criticizes the current government's communication strategy, describes it as slow, unprofessional, lacking clarity. He uses the phrase, like someone who read only half a page summary.
Ouch.
Yeah. He calls for leadership that's confident, clear, professional leadership based on wisdom, not just on holding a powerful position.
So putting these two views side by side, it's stark, isn't it?
It really is. One perspective, the field commanders perhaps, emphasizes a direct, robust defense against perceived encroachment. Stand your ground, talk like men.
The warrior approach.
Right. The other, from the retired strategist, emphasizes the long game, the critical importance of diplomacy, maintaining international standing, and finding peaceful ways through these very complex, very old border issues.
It really makes you, the listener, think about what strength truly means in these kinds of international disputes, doesn't it? Is it military readiness, or is it diplomatic skill, or some combination?
Absolutely. And moving from those strategic discussions, the sources then bring us right down to the ground, to the people who actually live their lives along this border.
The human impact. This comes from the BBC Thai report.
Yes, focusing on residents in Sisaket province. And these aren't people right at the clash site, but still very close, maybe 5 or 6 kilometers from the border.
Close enough to feel it. What are they saying?
They're expressing a really profound sense of vulnerability. We hear directly from one man, Mr. Wichet in Therasorn. His words were simply, afraid, can't sleep every night.
Just constant fear. That's heavy.
Incredibly. And you see this kind of almost desperate self-reliance emerging from that fear. People like Mr. Wichet, who tragically already lost a leg to a landmine in this same area years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Him and another older resident, Mr. Sathian, who's 71, they're reportedly building their own simple bunkers, little shelters.
Building their own. Why? Aren't there official ones?
There are official bunkers nearby, yes. But the feeling seems to be they can't rely on getting help immediately if something sudden happens. The report uses this term boom tams, which apparently means like sudden bangs, explosions, unexpected conflict sounds. They feel they need their own immediate refuge.
That speaks volumes about their sense of security or lack thereof.
It really does. And then there's the economic impact. Sisaket province, the report notes, already has one of Thailand's lowest per capita incomes based on 2024 data. This instability, this tension, it just makes existing hardship worse.
How does it affect their daily work, like farming?
Directly. Farming is the backbone there, right?
Yeah.
But it becomes filled with anxiety.
Hmm.
We hear from Mr. Armorn Mamrad, who's worrying about planting his rice. Like, what's the point if war breaks out and we can't even harvest it?
That uncertainty must be crippling.
And for some, just getting by means taking real risks. The sources mention people still going out to forage near the border.
Foraging, like for food.
Yeah, collecting mushrooms, other forest products to sell or eat.
Mm.
They feel they have to, out of necessity.
Hmm.
The quote is needing to feed children and grandchildren. It highlights these incredibly difficult choices the situation forces on them.
Putting themselves potentially in harm's way just to survive.
Exactly. And the worry for children is just palpable. Ms. Chit Kumpfen, she's a director at a local school with over 400 students. She expresses this deep concern about how to protect the kids if shooting starts.
Even with drills.
Yeah, they have drills, they prepare as best they can, but the underlying fear is constant. And you have to think about the impact that have on the kids' ability to learn, their general well-being.
It's a heavy burden for a community to carry. What's striking, too, is how their views compare to maybe some of the louder online voices.
Yes. The report contrasts the residents' feelings with some of the online rhetoric, mentioning hashtags like hashtag Thailand loves peace but not afraid to fight.
Right, that kind of nationalist sentiment.
But the people actually living there, the ones closest to the potential danger, they express a very clear, very fundamental desire simply for peace.
Do you hear any specific quotes on that?
Yeah, a local researcher, Mr. Sushin Fuchan, is quoted. He puts it very simply. Don't want war. Talk it out.
Talk it out.
And he makes this really human point about proximity. He asks, how can we separate the land? We have to go see each other anyway.
Recognizing the shared space, the interconnectedness.
Exactly. He emphasizes that the people on both sides aren't just abstract enemies, they're neighbors. Often, he says, they're even relatives, siblings.
Siblings, that's powerful.
It is. He acknowledges the complexities, things like land encroachment are real issues. But his core message, and the message from others quoted, is this deep yearning for peaceful coexistence and just getting the border clearly sorted out through negotiation, not confrontation.
So when you take that human perspective, the fear, the economic strain, the worry for kids, but also that fundamental desire for peace and neighborliness, it adds such a crucial dimension.
Absolutely. It reveals the real-world consequences behind the headlines and the strategic debates. Deep-seated fear, real impacts on livelihoods, and just this heartfelt hope for talking, not fighting.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize all of this. We looked at the official Thai government stance, patience, restraint, seeking peace, but also upholding sovereignty.
Right. Then the specific military actions taken on the ground in response to Cambodia's moves the border controls, the delegated authority.
And those really sharply differing strategic viewpoints from within the Thai military itself, the sort of warrior perspective versus the diplomat perspective.
And finally, layering on top of all that, the very real, very human fears, hardships, and hopes of the people actually living right there on the border.
Putting it all together really underscores the massive challenge facing the policymakers, doesn't it?
Immense. They're juggling so much. They have to react to immediate, on-the-ground realities, things like perceived violations, troop movements on the other side. They have to consider national sentiment, domestic political pressures.
But at the same time,
They have to weigh the long-term consequences of every action on Thailand's international relationships, its global standing, its reputation. It's an incredibly complex balancing act.
finding a way forward clearly isn't simple. It seems to demand this very careful mix of military preparedness, being ready to defend, but also really determined negotiation and sensitive diplomacy.
And doing all that while constantly trying to figure out and react to what the other side is doing and thinking. It's a dynamic situation.
Yeah. And hopefully, this deep dive, by bringing together these different pieces, the official, the military, the strategic, the human, helps you, the listener, see just how multifaceted this border situation really is.
Right. To appreciate all the different pressures, the different concerns, and maybe the different kinds of hopes that are all swirling around this issue, from those high-level government meetings right down to the homes just a few kilometers from that borderline.
So we've taken this deep dive into the many layers of the situation. We've heard the official lines, the differing military strategies from that warrior stance to the diplomat approach, and crucially, the voices of the people on the border, their fears, but also their hopes.
Yeah, it's clear there are a lot of factors involved, a lot of history tangled up in this, and definitely no easy answers on the table.
So, thinking about everything we've unpacked, what does it all really mean? Especially when you consider that profound desire for peace coming from the border residents themselves, the ones who see people across the line not as enemies, but as neighbors, sometimes even as family, as siblings. How can that powerful, basic human connection possibly inform or maybe even reshape the strategic diplomatic efforts happening at a national level? How can it help find a truly lasting, peaceful resolution to this incredibly complex and sensitive border dispute?
That's definitely something for you to think about as you reflect on this deep dive.
Thank you for joining us.